It's Podular. Welcome back, everybody. We had our Jordan episode last week. This is our Kobe episode, episode 24. It is Thursday, April 10th, and boy, do we have a lot to get into here today. We've got a ton of new announcements since the prior episode to cover here about some new tour dates and new events. We have our first ever Podular STS9 mix, which is going to take us into the sixth installment of the Artist Spotlight series here. And this mix is actually put on by the guests we've got here, and we're going to introduce in a little bit here. So we're going to get into a interview with them, and then we've got a given hot take by Scotty to wrap things up. But without further ado, Mr. Scotty Fuller, how are you? Welcome to episode 24.
Oh man, the Kobe episode feels just as good as the Jordan episode, baby. Let's do it.
Well, I don't know, I don't know, just as good.
Yours almost as good. Lots would argue almost as good.
In the same breath,
And
yes. There
this
we go.
absolutely. Um, they're both they should both be in your starting five.
That's right. Yes. Let's get right into it, man. Huge week for announcements here.
Man, we recorded early last week, and so
Yes.
we real early. We recorded on Monday of last week, dropped Thursday. So the Asheville and the Cat Theater announcement slipped by us, but fuck yeah, baby, we are here. We're going back to Asheville, and we are making a long-awaited return, right? Return, right? Have they ever played the Cap?
Yes, they played the Cap,
Okay,
I believe, in 2017.
okay,
It
that's what I
was.
thought.
Yes.
Um,
Um, really cool place. I've never been there. Getting into Asheville first, this seems like kind of a little bit of a makeup, right, from that New
yep.
Year's run, which we spent a whole episode talking about, which tragically due to the hurricanes this past fall, they had to reschedule and move to New Orleans. So it's really good to see them going back, heading back with the same opener they had planned for New Year's Eve with Emancipator Night 2. That is super exciting, and then Night 1 going to be Beats Antique. So this is to kick off August 1st and August 2nd, little 2 night run at Asheville Yards, which I'm not familiar with. But I'm sure it's going to be great. I think this is an outdoor venue as well. And man, summertime in Asheville, doesn't get much better than that. And then, yeah, we got the Cap Theater, and that is
Hold on,
going
hold
to,
on, hold on. I don't want to breeze over that because this should be a really cool show.
yeah,
And it's something that if you were going to make anything on this tour, I'd probably encourage you to it to be this. It's obviously a makeup. Asheville really needs it, and something cool that the band is doing is they're partnering with longtime charity partner Conscious Alliance and donating $1 per ticket directly back to the families that need it most in Asheville. I just thought that was a pretty cool detail that we definitely want everybody to know about.
yes, absolutely. Really, really cool thing that they're doing with that. And as we know, the most charitable band in the business, back at it with some of that. So and then we get about a month and a half later, the return to Port Chester, New York, so just north of New York City proper, the Capitol Theater, historic venue. I think this is a big venue in the history of the Grateful Dead, just in the
Hmm.
history of all different jam bands, and a place that is definitely on my bucket list to see them. So that is going to be a highlight of the fall as well. And then I think the biggest announcement, Scotty, woo, are we back at it for Camp Elsewhere, man?
Camp
Oh,
Elsewhere too.
that's right. And are they bringing some fucking friends with them? All right. Featuring Jeff Coffin, La Special, The Nth Power, Richard Devine, whew, and Two Bob Crew. Oh my goodness. This is going to be an event not to miss. These are the days leading up to the Cap Theater. So if that is going to be a trip that you're able to make, hitting Camp Elsewhere and then just parlaying that right into the Capitol Theater shows, uh, that's going to be a hell of a week.
Yeah.
So really
I
exciting stuff.
they've never had anybody from the special sit in. Has anybody from the Nth Power ever sat in with STS9 before?
Not that I know of, but
So
obviously you got
so
Two
So
Bob Crew,
you
Richard
got
Devine, and Jeff
60%
Coffin.
of that lineup that has sat in with them in recent memory. Um, Pretty cool. Yeah, it kind of maybe gives you a little hint of things to come.
Yes, definitely. Last year was kind of focused on them. I'm gonna see a big focus this year. It looks like on having guests on stage, which is cool. But yes, September 16th through 19th, just like last year, Full Moon Resort, Big India, New York. 6 intimate sets of STS9, including Axe the Cables and Wave Spell. You're gonna have days beginning with sunrise yoga, nature walks, afternoons flow into creek swims and creatively charged conversation. And the music goes late into the night with some of those late night open jams. You got STS9 inspired community art project, interactive sample stations. That was really fucking cool last year to mess around with Phipps's modular rig and Hunter's sample station there. Unique collaborations, open jams, exclusive merch pack, and more. So I think there's more info about the on sale coming with that later this week. But for anyone that couldn't make it last year, that has the means to make it, as someone who went last year, this is something you should not miss. This is something that any big fan of STS9, whether you're a musician or not, especially if you are a musician, is something you should try to make happen. The
Mhm.
grounds were immaculate. The staff was incredible. The facilities were great. The food that was served was awesome. It was a top notch event. I like to call it Country Club Wave Spell. That's kind of my key term
I
there
like
for
that.
it. But yes, sir. But we've got some cool shit to share with you here today. Scotty, take
Yes.
it away.
So a few months ago, around Super Bowl time, as some of our listeners might remember, we had a prompt where we asked you guys to make your Super Bowl playlist, so to speak. And around that same time, Nate and I had an idea to reach out to a friend of ours, the guest today, who is a DJ and a producer. And I said, hey, would you be interested in maybe mixing your own kind of Super Bowl halftime STS9 playlist? And he said absolutely, but he was not going to be able to have it done in time. And so we said absolutely, we don't want. He is here with us today to talk about it. We have not heard this. Me or Nate have not listened to any of this, so we're going to react to it in real time and have some fun with our guest today. So we'll go ahead and get into it.
Gonna be like
a musical story, yes.
yeah. Well, let me ask you, dramatic with
yes.
music.
Acting
Yeah.
and yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, man. Is this gonna be one of those, one of them,
Yes.
yeah,
Fucking chill bump.
Story, yes.
yeah.
We're in the fucking building tonight, baby.
Already got one rolled up in my left hand. Pussy on my mind, tighter than a headband. Fish in my lungs, got ganja in my sweat glands. This shit I'm on better than the next strand. Better than the next strand. She head down, booty popping in the handstand. Shine bright, eye, give your girl a slight tan. I make that pussy whistle like the old Spice Man. I don't even understand why she'd ever want a man. If she ever throw it, I catch it like a corner bag. Like a corner bag, that's an interception. You think I give a fuck? That's a misconception. Oh what a night, oh what a night. The roof is on fire, so what? I'm high. I say oh what a night, oh what a night. Yeah, she a bad bitch. All jokes aside. Hey, look at baby over there. What's up, little mama? Come here. She started talking, but I really couldn't hear until she started dancing like she do it in the mirror. Like she do it in the mirror. Like she do it in the mirror. She broke it down, started moving like she care. Like she do it in the mirror. Chop one, chop that ass, chop that ass, chop that ass. Want you to drop that ass down. Now look back at it.
Whistling Dixie. Middle school, I was getting head on the 10 speed. Gigolo bloodline, pimping the word of terror. Like a 28, so remind me of February.
The day dude.
I fight the world, I fight you, I fight myself. I fight God, just tell me how many birds left. I fight pain and hurricanes to death. Back tears flood on my doorsteps. Life we live in hell, puddles of blood in the street. Shooters on top of the building, government aid and relief. Earthquake, the body drop, the ground breaks. The poor run with smoke lungs and Scarface. Who need a hero? You need a hero. Look in the mirror, there go your hero. Who on the front lines at ground zero? My heart don't skip a beat even when hard times bumps the needle. Mass destruction and mass corruption, the souls of suffering men. Clutching on deaf ears again, rapture is coming. It's all prophecy, and if I gotta be sacrificed for the greater good, then that's what it gotta be. Pray for me, take my pain for me, save my soul for me, 'cause I'm alone, you see. If I won't die for you, if I won't kill for you, then I spell this blood for you.
And certainly this indicates that we are ready for freedom. And we're ready to march for it. All we want you to do is keep going with this fight for freedom. And as we stick together, when we get this unity, ladies and gentlemen, nothing can stop us. We're going to win this fight for freedom. Thank you very much.
Shit done changed. Ever since we was on, I dreamed it all. Ever since I was young, they said I won't be nothing. Now they always say congratulations. Work so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People changing, look, we made it. Yeah, we made it. They was never friendly. I'm jumping at the Bentley, yeah. And I know I sound dramatic, yeah. But I know I had to have it, yeah. For the money, I'm a savage, yeah. seem like I had it. Yeah, I'm surrounded 20 bad bitches. Yeah, but they didn't know me last year. Yeah, everyone wanna act like they important. But all that mean nothing when that's on my door. Yeah, everyone counting on me, drop the ball. Yeah, everything custom like I'm at the bottom. Yeah. If you fuck with winning, put your lighters to the sky. How could I make sense when I got millions on my mind? Coming with that bullshit, I just put it to the side. All the sense of baby, they can see it in my
Well, that is the most fun we've had so far here on Podular. So without further ado, everybody, welcome Mr. Daniel McNatt, Mr. DJ McNice, our sixth feature of the Artist Spotlight. Welcome to the program, my friend. Gosh, bravo on that little 10-minute mix.
I mean, worth the wait. Worth the wait.
Thanks for having me. I have been very much looking forward to dropping that one with you guys. I'm glad it was well received. Hopefully people are feeling it. I had a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Walk us through that track list real quick again here. All right, so we start with the
something.
Yeah.
Well, you hit them with the musical story, yes.
That's right. That's right.
I'm
Right?
sorry.
How could I
Of course.
forget?
You
Yeah.
gotta, set the stage. That one was kind of like the no-brainer for me, like that quintessential like STS9 opener with the intention behind it.
Mhm.
Then into the something with the headband mashup with B.O.B. and 2 Chainz. I got a story about that.
I was so happy you left the 2 Chainz verse in there.
I felt bad cutting, because he only gets like a few bars in there, but I had to give a little 2 Chainz flavor.
And those bars matter so much, like that makes the whole song. 2 Chainz is one of my favorite rappers. So
100%. Oh yeah, gotta give a shout out to the A on that one. Yeah, we got the something with the headband, and then after that was the Tokyo into Lizzo.
That's right. I think that was my favorite part. I can't believe that worked so well.
I oh my god, dude! It is. I think it was. Well, I mean, I don't want to rush you. I don't. Keep going.
Yeah, I could dive deeper into some of these just to confirm the track list here.
Yeah.
Then we got the Glass Z13 with the Kendrick and the Weekend mashup. Pray for me. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then finish it off with the Scheme reprise with the Post Malone. Congratulations,
that's the one. I can't believe how well that sounded. I walked off camera and put my headphones on my wife's ear for a second. I was like, you gotta fucking hear this.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh man, that was so fun. Thank you for doing that. We'll make sure that we get a download link or a SoundCloud link or however you plan on releasing that in the description, so people can listen to that whenever they want. But what an honor to debut that on the pod here. But welcome to the program, man. I know that you're a valued listener, and it's awesome to get you on as a guest. We're gonna plan on talking a lot about your different ventures as a DJ here. I know you've got a lot as an event promoter and stuff like that, but as an STS9 fan too, a longtime STS9 fan. So we got a lot to unpack here and a lot of clips to take a listen through kind of your own personal history through STS9. But let's start with you, man. Tell us who Daniel McNatt is. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into music? Everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and really, really appreciate y'all having me on. Definitely an honor to follow in the footsteps of all the other artists that you've had. Listened to all of those pods previous to me. So yeah, big ups for what y'all are doing and for having me on. I grew up in North Carolina. Was born in Jersey. Moved down to North Carolina when I was just a little kid, and I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and grew up in a family that I wouldn't say was very musical, but we listened to a lot of music. Like some of my earliest memories are just like listening to music when my mom's cooking, listening to the radio in the car. And, my parents were both like, they went to concerts, and they were more into like pop 80s music, like Whitney Houston, and even like Beach Boys and the Beatles, some of the stuff from like the 60s and the 70s. And actually, as I got older, I realized that my dad actually had like some like Allman Brothers concert experiences from back in the day, and he gifted Ashley a vinyl, one of his vinyls from like Woodstock from back in the day. So as I got older, started to realize that pops actually had more of a diverse kind of musical palette from the back in his days. But yeah,
I mean, at one point, all your parents' music is the same to you, right?
Yeah.
You're just a
For
little
sure.
kid, and it's the shit your parents listen to, and you go back later, and you're like, oh, damn, my dad might have actually had it right. I don't know.
100%.
He scored some heady points for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then once it got to the point where I was listening to my own music, I got into rap and hip hop like pretty much immediately. Like some of my earliest memories of like me like listening to music is, like Coolio and Skilo and Naughty by Nature and kind of stuff like that, like kind of early 90s rap and hip hop. And then like once I started buying CDs, and I think even the first thing I bought was a cassette tape, honestly, was like TLC.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that Crazy Sexy Cool was like one of the first things, and so the Fugees and Lauryn
Yes.
Hill and all that really resonated with me. And then I was like sort of at the perfect age to get into like Tupac and Biggie. They were kind of like my first favorite rappers. Like I still remember exactly where I was when I found out that Biggie died. It was like the first time I was like, whoa, somebody that I really like idolize isn't the right word, but really like appreciated as like a fan of music.
As a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like I was very much into kind of the hip hop rap scene up until probably late middle school, early high school is when I started listening to more like rock music, but it was really more like your Limp Bizkit, Korn, Godsmack, kind of the angry high schooler. I mean, needed an outlet. That was actually my first concert was Limp Bizkit, DMX, and Godsmack.
Wow.
Wow.
Which Limp Bizkit album was that off of? Was that Chocolate Starfish and hot dog flavored water?
I think that was the second one I went to. There was one right before that. This was like 1999.
Yeah, no, because
Significant Other then?
I have a hard time believing that DMX was following anybody after the year of the two albums. There's some pretty funny stories about rappers having to follow that guy. And back then I can imagine one of the only acts that was out there back then that could probably follow DMX was Limp Bizkit. That sounds like a fucking hell of a time.
For sure. Yeah, I was like the perfect age to go crowd surfing, I was like 14.
Yeah.
I start in the back, crowd surf my way to the front.
Yeah.
It was definitely a fun time. The DMX was definitely one of my all-time favorites. That was one of the first mixes that I made actually as a DJ was after DMX passed away. I did like a DMX tribute mix.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, I have to uncover that somewhere.
I'd love to hear that. DMX is also one of my favorite rappers.
Yeah. And then about maybe like halfway through high school is when I got introduced to Bob Marley and reggae and started kind of really leaning more towards that side of things. And I was still listening to some of the like rock and just like angry high school rock music, but that's when I started to kind of shift the thought process that I had around music more towards like the vibes, like the vibes that draw us to STS9 and draw us to the types of music that I really gravitate towards these days. I remember like specifically having that shift in my mindset when I was, probably 15 or 16, and I went and saw the Wailers in concert. There's a local spot in Winston-Salem, Ziggy's, where Sector 9 played back in the day. I had no idea Sector 9 was around back then, but just like the cool local spot in Winston that had some pretty big musicians that came through. So that's where I really started going to see some of the the music that still resonates with me today was at that spot in Winston. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, well, I guess like one thing that would really make sense to highlight is in high school, I started making mixtapes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I called them D Money's Monster Mixes. And I had like D Money Monster Mix, like volume 1 all the way up through volume, I think 12 or 13 or something like that. You know, I was all up on like Napster and
hell
downloading
yeah.
music and making mixes and send them to my friends. I had cousins up in New Jersey, and I would like make a mix of all the underground New York hip hop, and I'd bring it up and listen to it with them, you know. So I'd always been in a position to, you know, to make mixes, to put people onto new music, to,
Yeah,
you know, kind of.
be a tastemaker, right? Yeah.
Sure, sure. I would. I'm sure that's something that probably all three of us could say. It seems to be where STS9 seems to be where a lot of those people end up. I guess I mean, which is kind of a cool segue into what was going to be one of my next questions, which is, you know, nobody finds STS9 on their own. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure somebody did, but like, if we all kind of close our eyes right now, we could say that person that was like, "Hey, look at this." Who was that person for you?
That was Alex Knapp.
Okay.
Shout out to Nappy. He was one of my little brothers. I was in a fraternity in college at UNC Chapel Hill. I was actually in the same fraternity as Taylor Houston Morgan, actually. Not
you
in the
were
same. I was a
Kappa
Kappa
Sig?
Sig.
Yeah. I went to college with Taylor.
Okay, right on. Nice. Yeah, I heard him say that, and I was cracking up.
Yeah.
But yeah, my little brother in fraternity, he's the one that that put me onto like electronic music in general, you know. And he was making me mixes. I actually found some of them just like going through some of my CDs, and he would call them McNice mixes and would put all the stuff that he
Hey.
thought that I would like on there.
So he
And,
named you.
yeah, I think we could basically credit Nappy for the McNice project from day one.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know, he put me onto the Disco Biscuits and Lotus and you know, Glitch Mob, early Pretty Lights, you know, all that good stuff, like Prefuse 73, and yeah, there was just yeah, Elliot Lip, and you know, kind of that whole scene. And admittedly, STS9 like wasn't really what hit with me at first, just listening to it on the CDs. It was more like the electronic stuff, and actually like the Disco Biscuits. You know, I started going to see them in concert, and at first, like I saw them, you know, for a couple of years before I ever saw Sector 9 live, and so I was sort of gravitating towards the Biscuit scene, and you know, more of the Biscuits music at first in the first couple of years there.
And look at them now. They're crushing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, let's get into it, man. So like you said, so you start seeing the Biscuits in some of these jam band shows around 2005, and then your first show, the STS9, All Good 2007. I mean, taking a look at what that lineup was and what that weekend was like, I'll let you bring us there first. What was it like going to All Good? Was that your first big music festival like that, or had you been to a couple before?
Yeah, I had been to All Good the year before. So I was at All Good 2006. And that was the first time that I had been to like a legit, like, you know, camp out music festival. And the next year going into it, I remember like talking to the friends that I was camping with on the car on the way up there and really being excited to see STS9, like knowing that that was like the band that I really wanted to check out. And, you know, at the time, really wanting to hear an Instantly, because that was the only song I could recognize, you know.
Yeah.
And knowing like enough that like I knew that this was something that I was like really excited about. But you know, Marvin's Mountaintop, for those who haven't been there, it's a very, very special spot up in the West Virginia mountains. And they were doing like the late night set, I think it was like 2 to 4 a.m. or something like that. And yeah, I think there's some of this in the clip we're going to show, but the fog rolls in, and it was just a very, very special moment. I know I've met several people throughout the years that this was also their first STS9 show, so I think there's probably a few of us that, you know, we put on this night.
Yeah, you take a look at who they're playing with. And Bob Weir and Rat Dog, Two Nights of Mo, Keller, Michael Franti and Spearhead, Les Claypool, DSO, Yonder, RIP Jeff Austin, STS9, Lotus, Tea Leaf Green, P Groove,
God
That must
damn,
have
dude.
been a really fun lineup there.
Oh,
But let's get into it. I know we got a handful of clips here to share to kind of see the evolution of your STS9 viewing, and it's really cool that we've got an iClips video from your first show here. So we'll get right into that.
wow.
Straight into a tooth.
Dude,
That's
07
the-
Rabbles, man. That's where that song is really at. You can just close your eyes and throw it at a dartboard of 07 Rabbles, and you're getting something good out of it.
Yeah. So you talked about the fog rolling in during that rabble and just like the visually being so impressed by what was happening. Take us to kind of your initial reaction to your first show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just absolutely blown away. I mean, just listening to it on a CD, like you certainly don't get like the whole experience of, just the vibes of being there with the crowd. Certainly like the light show with the fog rolling in and I was with some people that I think had, been to STS9 shows before, and like feeling how special it was to other folks. And yeah, I mean, I think that rabble was really what did it for me. And they ended up they did play it instantly, which at the time was like what I really wanted to hear. And then they encored with, I didn't know what it was at the time, but I remember leaving there just thinking like that encore was incredible. And a couple of days later, I get back and look it up and realize that the song name is Be Nice, and I'm like, oh, this band is so awesome.
So I'm
that's
gonna
so
run.
cool.
This is one of my favorite set lists that we've talked about from someone's first show. Brent, One a Day, STS9, You Don't Say, Mischief, We'll Meet in Our Dreams, The Rabble, Tooth, Aimlessly, 1103, Instantly.
Yeah.
Be Nice, Encore. If that doesn't hook you in '07, then you were dead in the water, dude. You had no choice.
100%. Yeah, I think it took me a little while for me to like shift into like that being like my band, but as soon as I left Marvin's Mountaintop, I was like, I get it. I'm totally rocking with SDS9 from here on out.
So I don't something I don't know if you know this or not, or if you realize this, but I noticed these fun little patterns in people's stats. And your first 8 shows were actually all in different cities. So they were a little more sporadic than they ended up becoming. But it's pretty clear that the places that you were hitting, like your festivals, you were at Big Cypress on Big Cypress Indian Reservation, and Rothbury, and Virginia, and Charlotte, and Asheville, and Oakland. Like, you were running around to catch them, so it's pretty clear.
Yeah, a lot of that was, doing festivals and picking out the festivals because I knew SCS9 was going to be there. That's for sure.
So you see some shows there in the late 2000s, and then we're gonna get into our next clip, and this is so cool that we get to talk about these shows. I've talked about it on the podcast before. Regen 2011, right? Horning's Hideout. These are the shows that I use to get familiar with their catalog. I think these shows, top to bottom, have pretty much everything you're looking for in terms of, like the highlights of their catalog and everything like that. But never having been to Horning's Hideout and hearing so much about it, take us there. Was that your first kind of big STS9 centric event?
Yeah, that was the first STS9 festival for sure. 'Cause I was right at the tail end of them doing a lot of the stuff out at Deerfields and Asheville. I didn't get to make it to any of that. So this is my first like, Sector 9 curated camp out event. And, at the time I had moved out to California, and I drove up there and had like a nice little crew of people that were East Coast Sector 9 kids that came out, some of the Cali folks. And it was like one of the first times that I really knew how special it was going to be. I had heard about Hornings. The rest of the lineup was just insane. Also in 2011, like some of those acts are even like towards the bottom are just obviously huge. And yeah, it was just a really special venue. It was, they did an act set one day. It was my first act, which, I was immediately just like blown away from the act set. So I didn't get to go there in the first ones. I think that was like the 4th or 5th act set that they did. And yeah, just I think that was my first West Coast festival as well, which just has like a slightly different vibe than the East Coast festivals too.
Yeah.
Isn't it a peacock farm?
Yeah, it is.
There's a peacock fucking running around. You just pick up feathers left and right, right?
100%. Yep.
That's insane.
And talking about that lineup, we won't mention the headliner. I don't think he deserves that. But some of the people on this, the Glitch Mob, Lotus, Beats Antique, Big G, Tycho, Emancipator, Break Science, Paper Diamond, Elliot Lip, Up Until Now, Keys and Crates, Polish Ambassador, the Mala. Man, I mean, these are pretty incredible events that they were throwing. So is this where you feel like you kind of immerse yourself a little bit in the STS9 fan community too?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, some of the people that I met that weekend are like some of my closest friends to this day, and a lot of it through Sector 9 and just through music in general. So yeah, I'd say 2011 was definitely a big year for me, and meeting a lot of folks and really feeling like I'm a part of the community, and yeah, just making those connections, and yeah, just really just loving the energy of the community and the shows, and like looking forward to the people I was going to see at these shows like just as much as the music.
Good stuff. Well, let's listen to some of that music. We've got a really cool little tidbit to share from that weekend here, and we'll get into it.
Oh. Mm.
Oh, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is titled Jam with Dominic Lally, a big gigantic. That is the 2011 624 set. Some really cool background on this one. So you might recognize this. So this is Piece One, which is a song by John McLaughlin. And Peace Piece is a well known composition by Bill Evans, which is a cornerstone jazz standard, which ultimately got played again at the 1/1 2015 improv show. And I think they teased it at one of those Levish improv shows as well. But
Yeah, that sounds right.
really, really cool snippet here.
I mean, there's no such thing as a wasted clip. Obviously, we're happy to have Daniel here, and we're glad he pulled it. But that would have crushed a Wave Spell episode. Somebody missed out on an absolute fucking haymaker of a jam right there.
I'm telling you, this list of songs that Dan helped put together took quite a few off my running list I had here. But
hey, and read that set list for the people, because god damn, talk about another incredible run of the catalog.
Getting into it, that is, they do a quick intro into a Reemergence opener, which is like one of the most ethereal things ever. That's really what got me hooked on that song and had me chasing it for 50 plus shows. Grow, Move My Peeps, Some Sing, Luma, Tokyo, Fat Empires, This Jam, Firewall, Tap In, Mischief, One a Day, Inspire. Firewall with Dom as well. Empires with Dom as well. Damn. And yeah, you were lucky enough to be there, Mr. McNatt. So I know you talk about several crowd moments, the axe circus and the crowd reactions and stuff. How was the vibe?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, the Axe Circus was really one that stood out to me at first. Was it was like one of the last songs they played of that set, and everybody was just sort of chilling. It's sort of in this little like natural kind of bowlish amphitheater, and you can sit on the grass. And I just remember like as soon as they started playing Circus, like everybody stood up and people started going down into the pit, and it's like the whole crowd reaction, like all standing and dancing together, was like something that always really stood out to me. And yeah, just that particular set with like the Dom sit-ins, just really special. And at that point, I had come to realize like what were some of the more the gems of the Soundtribe catalog, and knowing that this is how special that was. Like I definitely left that festival feeling like this is a community that I really want to be a part of, that I really realized something special is going on, the way that they host events like this for their fans, and really kind of set me in this pathway of like wanting to be around Sector 9 and Sector 9 community as much as I can, wanted to do my own events. And yeah, I definitely left this event feeling incredibly inspired, for sure.
Well, you couldn't have walked us into our next set of questions any better, because that pardon me, that's 2011, and 2012 is when you did get involved a little bit more directly with the band, and indirectly directly in a way, because it looks like the first after party that you threw was the following year in Oakland, correct?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I had at that point, built a pretty good community on the West Coast. Um, had some just really great show friends and support networks, and was feeling like I wanted to get back into the music promotion because I had thrown a couple parties and did some concerts at the Cat's Cradle in Carborough back in
Okay,
college.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, so I had done like a couple of like fundraisers. They're like hip hop focused was one. One was just more like kind of local, just like college bands, where I booked a venue and I did all the promotions and booked all the artists, and just produced an event. But after Regen and going into 2012, I knew that I wanted to start doing events more West Coast style out in Oakland. I was living in the Bay. And this was when they did the 421 at the Fox Theater, and I decided to work with a venue that I was connected with the owner of this cafe that wasn't usually open that late. Say, hey, you could stay open a little bit later this night and let us throw a little party, and booked a couple local DJs. And I'm not even certain if we had flyers or anything, and it's certainly like an unofficial after party, but that was the first time we did an event that was catered to the Sector 9 crowd, to a Sector 9 run, and packed it out. We had live painters in there, but we were to capacity. We had to stop letting people in. It was right on the corner of 20th and Broadway in Oakland, and yeah, that was kind of my first taste of like really doing after parties, being a part of that Sector 9 just community. And yeah, it was it was definitely like a pivotal moment for me, and kind of how I wanted to start doing things more from like that music event production and promotion than actually DJing at that time.
Yeah, it sounds like they inspired you behind that, and we all know that they're good at showcasing different kinds of art and having different types of art at events. So you going into throwing your first events, what were a few of the things you felt like you needed to throw a good STS9 after party?
Yeah, I mean the live painting for sure was
Mm-hmm.
definitely one of them. Making sure that we have the live painters in there, and also and it's tough for Sector 9 to do this at all the venues they go to, but I went to everybody that was working because I knew they don't usually work late at night, and went up to them and just said, hey, I tipped them out a little bit earlier in the night and said, hey, just make sure you really take care of these people. People potentially had a long night. They're coming here to kind of relax and chill. So I wanted to make sure that like I was setting the intention with the people that I was throwing the party with, because they weren't really a part of the scene, and just trying to take that extra step to like explain what was going on, explain the mindset people might be in, and make sure that everybody was treated in a way that they would want to be treated at an after party. Well, really anywhere, but especially at an after party.
Absolutely. Do you remember any of the artists that you had playing music at the after party?
Yeah, they were local DJs. I wish I had the poster that I could potentially show you. One was Adam Hoover. I don't know if he listens to Soundtrap anymore, but shouts to Hoove. I think he went by DJ Hoove. And there was another DJ that was local to Oakland, who I actually had met just a couple of days before at the Guitar Center. Cleveland, DJ Cleve, yeah, was the other one. So yeah, just like a couple of local guys that yeah, were just up for the event.
Very cool, very cool. Well, shout out to those guys. So so from 2012 to 2014, you're kind of throwing after parties here, and you get involved with production with them as well, correct?
Yeah, so I started up my own production company called 108 Entertainment.
Okay.
And 108 Entertainment was the production company that I started up mostly to throw a festival. And so 2013, I threw a festival called Manifest that was up in the California hills, just outside of Angels Camp, that was very heavily influenced by 1320 Records artists. I had Polish Ambassador was one of my headliners. I had Boombox on there, Russ Liquid, Thriftworks, Human Experience, Andrelian. There was just a bunch of just like really cool up and coming West Coast producers, but also had some bluegrass artists in there. Had some had a Fish cover band. Had like more jam bandy kind of stuff going on. And the idea was to we had 2 stages and have like a late night on one stage that was electronic, a late night on the other stage that was more live band, and kind of have a mix between the two. Ayla Nereo was there, who ended up collaborating with Polish Ambassador, and just had like a really special event that brought together a lot of people that I was friends with, kind of from different groups, East Coast, Sector 9, electronic scene in the Bay Area, and kind of brought everybody together. We called it Manifested Co-Creative Gathering of Positive Energies, and that's exactly what it was. And it's just a really sweet event that eventually led me into doing one-night club shows. And one of them, the one that I planned right after that, was supposed to be an after party for another Sector 9 show at the Fox Theater, but that was January 2014 for the tour.
The tour that never happened. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
So let's rewind a little bit. We like to talk about this with all your guests. It's kind of one of those moments, right, where the band parts ways with Murph. Everyone kind of remembers where they were, what they were doing. Take us to that day for you.
Yeah. I had been planning this after party, and I had Russ Liquid booked to perform. Russ Liquid, I think at that time he was like playing with Sector 9. He was doing the horns, the liquid horns.
Did some sit-ins in 2013.
And so and I couldn't announce it for some reason. I don't know if there was like a radius clause or something, so I had it billed as a very special 1320 guest for the after party. But all the homies knew who it was. And I was working for a recruiting agency in downtown Oakland at the time, and back then we were doing all our interviews in person. And I had my phone at my desk, and I went to do the interview, and I came back and I had like 25 text messages. I was like, what happened? It's like, yo, Murph left. Yo, what's going on? Just like, and I wasn't like very tapped into like what was going on behind the scenes. So to me, like, I sort of heard like maybe there were some issues, but I didn't know it was like that, So to me, it was like a total shock, total surprise. On like the personal level, I had just like, really committed my soul to Sector 9, and that being like a huge part of my life. And so I was like kind of heartbroken. And then just logistically at the same time, I was like, what am I going to do? With this deposit I put down on the venue and the guarantees, like, what am I going to do? So there was like a little bit of both, like, like a little frantic with the after party, but also just being really bummed, and not really knowing what was going on. And I think there was a lot of uncertainty for me at that point, like what even was going to happen. So yeah, it was definitely a very memorable, moment for me to come back to my phone and see what it had been announced. So yeah, I don't remember how long it was after that they kind of said everything was cool and that Alana was going to slide in. I think
they technically never did.
Yeah, okay. She just slid on stage and McDowell. Yeah, about 3 months later.
They announced McDowell, I think 3 weeks or so after that, as I remember, and everyone collectively was just kind of like, okay, I guess they have a bass player.
Right.
I think those of us that were at the Tabernacle run, it was safe to assume, or felt like it was safe to assume, that was who they were rolling with. But I don't think anyone knew 100% until New Dawn, New Day, when she walked on stage, and that was where it started.
Yeah. When was your first Alana show?
It was Red Rocks that year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think the first Alana show I had was that show where they did the Axe to Unquestionable, and then opened up the next set with the electronic Unquestionable.
I'm looking at your stats right now. That is correct. That is your first Alana show. That's a hell of a first Alana show. That was my first Red Rocks.
Oh, okay, right on. Yeah,
I was in the middle of my victory lap at U of I, my last last semester, so couldn't make it to that one.
Nice. Yeah.
So got a so so from do you do anything more production wise with them, or is that when you kind of settle down for a little bit and go back into fan mode?
Yeah, I settled down a little bit. I mean, I was producing events in Oakland between 2014, 2015, and booking artists that people would know through Sector 9. I certainly discovered most of them through Sector 9, Desert Dwellers, and Random Rab, Rena Jones, Duffrey, a lot of those folks.
Cool.
Yeah, but none of it was really Sector 9 related, and I just was in total fan mode. Alana, I mean, I loved Murph. It's like I had no beef with the band. There were some shows back in 2012, 2013 that were not at the bar that I was expecting for Sector 9 to deliver. But as soon as Alana came, I was definitely like my fandom was back at an all-time high. And I felt 2014, 2015, like some of those shows were really, really special. And was just it was all about just checking them out as much as I could from there.
That's when you really pick up steam. I mean, 2015 you're at 10 shows, 2016 11, slow in 2017, 10 in 2018, and then 2019 you crank it up to 21 shows. So your stats thing looks like a skyline. It's pretty fun to look at. But that's where our next clip takes us, before the world kind of ends and you start something new. But this clip takes us to Falls Church, Virginia, and we'll get into it a little bit more after we listen to it.
Good fucking God, dude.
Son, if you're playing podcast bingo, you just crossed off your 2019 clip of the week. I mean, fuck, dude. Wow. Is that the best thing we've ever played on this podcast?
Oh, that's got to be up there, dude.
It might be. I mean, it don't get more STS9 than that, son. Fuck me. That was so good. Wow.
Dan, thank you for bringing us to this one. It's been a long overdue since we've been to get to a Squares and Cubes, and to this one, man, like
Squares and New Dawn Mischief Cubes, man.
Axe, nonetheless.
Axe.
That percussion breakdown where they're fucking around with like the and like the then Hunter comes in with like the little fucking New Dawn New Day sees. That is top fucking notch shit. And
dude, Fib sounds like he's kicking his piano, dude. Like... Oh, it was humorously good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was a really special run. You know, all 3 nights, but that show in particular, just like I've listened to that show all the time. It was a really cool run for me too, because Ashley wasn't able to make it, and being just like the super dope hype wife that she is, she let me
shout
go
out
to the shows
Ashley.
on my own.
I can't believe it took us so long to say her name.
I got a story about Ashley. It's actually in regards to the mix. I'll bring it up later.
I was gonna ask.
But you know, I went to the show solo. You know, it's on the East Coast. It's not in North Carolina. It's not West Coast. And I didn't really know anybody, and ended up meeting so many people that run, because you know I'm solo. I'm just out here trying to meet people, and folks, they're some of my favorite people to see shows with. Nick and Celeste, shout out to those guys. And then as the run, I met Caesar, I met Marty Pierce, I met Dave Sheldon. I was
just
gonna
ask about Marty.
Yeah, man. Like I met Hannah and Tim Foley. You know, like I met like all these folks that you know I maybe had seen around, but you know never really had a chance to connect with them. And you know by the end of that run, you know I had 20 new like homies after that run. So outside of it being, I just think a really special run for Sector 9, it was a very, very special run for me, and helping build some more of that Sector 9 community too.
I think it's really fun to pinpoint like that run that brought so much stuff together for you friendship wise, and just expands the amount of places you'll go to see them if you've got like people to hang out with or friends from different parts of the country and everything like that, and just strengthening that community. And at this point you're 12 years in, right? And it just keeps expanding, which is really cool. This obviously from 2019, which is one of the favorite years of the program here. I'm
with that hot take, by the way. 29, that hot take, I don't know if I've ever agreed with one more than that one.
We don't ever shut the fuck up about it, dude. I say something about it every week. So.
Before we move past 2019, though, I know there was a show we wanted to talk about and bring to the attention. Back in the great state of North Carolina, right? We go to the Ritz.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, in November 12th, 2015. Tell us about this show a little bit, if you could, Daniel.
Thank you for bringing it back. This is a show I definitely wanted to highlight. It's one of the rare like non-Asheville, North Carolina gems, and one that I was lucky enough to be at. And you know, this was when they were doing the hotline bling, you know, and you could like call the STS9 hotline, and you know, there was just some cool stuff going on in general. And this was the first time I got to meet the band too. I was able to say what's up to them before the show, which was personally meaningful for me. But this set, I think, is for me like all-time top 5. I think that this first set in particular is under the radar, like one of the best Sector 9 sets I've ever heard, much less witnessed. And I'm a big time monkey music reemergence guy, and the painted reemerging monkey.
Wait, no, we can go full here. We go the dancing gangster, dancing painted reemerging monkey. If we're doing this full thing, so to start off, they don't stop. They do the namesake of the podcast, mod into modular, into dance, into G-Funk, which was really rare at the time.
Yeah,
second G-Funk ever, and then it falls off a cliff for like 5 years.
Right. Yep.
back into dance, into the paint, into monkey music, into reemergence, back into monkey music. And then they top off set one with Kaya and then Freak 2-3. Good. I mean, I need a water after that first set. Unbelievable.
I think that might have been the first time I ever like was spinning around in the back of a venue back then, you know, just like totally sober. Like,
yeah,
just
that show will
losing
do
my
it
mind.
for sure.
Oh,
It'll
man.
turn you into spinner. Yeah.
I mean,
so-
and yeah, set two, get into it.
Yeah, I got set to Grow, Orbital, Come Why, Be Nice, Hubble, New Dawn, New Day, Meta Meme, Fat Globally, as they were around this time. And then the encore was double encore, Phoneme and STS9.
Oh my
Yeah, double
God.
encore on a Thursday night in Raleigh. You know,
Well, they fucking knew they had to after putting that kind of fucking show together.
I've been to that venue, dude. It is a matchbox. It is so small, and I've never seen STS9 there. I saw Boombox there.
oh yeah, right on.
And what a set list. I mean, that you're so close in that venue. I mean, this must have been a really, really cool night.
Yeah. So again, this is one that we will dive into on other clips. We've got some other clips we want to get to as well. But thank you for bringing it up and talking about it. You're the first person I've talked to that was at this show, and to know that you find it as special as we do is awesome. So we'll throw that link to the Bandcamp. The Bandcamp link to this show as well, because it's definitely one to check out to go back into the 2015 vault. But getting back, 2019, great year for STS9. COVID hits, right? And I think we get a little bit of a different foray into your artistic expression during that time. You use that downtime to kind of get into a new craft for yourself. So talk a little bit about that and how you got into mixing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had DJ equipment from my days of doing the event production. I had just never used it myself. Had always thought that it would be something that I would do, but just due to time and other priorities, and kind of dropped off doing the event production. COVID hit, and I thought now's the perfect time to dust this thing off, see if it still works, and get into some mixing. So I got a new laptop, and I had this vision of doing a something mashup with Headband. Was really like kind of the reason why I wanted to do this. This was like
Cool.
I remember back in, it must have been like 2015 or 16 at the time, whenever Headband came out, maybe even a couple years before that. And I remember hearing Headband and thinking, I think this would go really well with something. And I had a producer.
Was
buddy.
it the whistle that you heard? Was that it?
Yeah, it must have been. There was something that I thought, this just sounds like it goes well together. And I had a producer buddy at the time, and I was like, hey, do you think these two songs would go together? And he probably looked up like the tempo or whatever it was, the key, and was like, yeah, I think that would actually go really well together. I was like, sweet. So that was always like the seed that took several years and a pandemic to actually grow. But that was the first thing I did. Was I got all my equipment together. I downloaded those two songs, and I was like, let's see if this works. And it did. And I was like, okay, I think I can, I think I have the ear for this. I think this is something that I could potentially do, and really have some fun with, and have it be something that people really like and listen to. And I had sent this to Ashley. I had sent this to my buddy B, who is actually the one who runs the soundtribe.us, the Sector 9 stats page.
Cool.
And both of them loved it. I mean, just were like, yes, absolutely, you should post this. And it took me 3 years before I felt comfortable actually releasing it or playing it, because I was so nervous that Sector 9 would be like, nah, we hate it. Like I just was like, no, I don't think I could do it. So
Yeah.
But that's really was kind of like the creative thought that started all this for me. And then another cool thing that they were doing during COVID was they were doing all the live lessons, through the live lessons platform. You could book, I was booking Chill Time with Alana, and you could book private parties with Phipps. Yeah, it was really cool. And you could book a DJ lesson with Matty O'Neill.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I went on there and did a DJ lesson with her just to get the basics. Like I remember just asking her like, how do you download your music? Like how do you organize it? What kind of software do you use? Like how should I lay these foundations? Like as I want to make sure I'm like setting myself up to do it right from the start, and got some tidbits from her, just like very basic things around mixing and EQ and just like making sure that I had some of the foundation to really kind of build up my DJ library, organize it, and start doing mixing and mashups. And that's really what kind of set me on the direction. I still use the same software that she recommended. I still organize my crates in the way that she told me to, so definitely shout out to Maddie for being just like super cool. And she hit me with the Instagram follow back like immediately, and still like like interact with me when I hit her up, so definitely very, very cool for her to do that. And yeah, I was just mixing in my apartment clearly because I couldn't do it anywhere else. And uh, it was New Year's of 2020 going into 2021. Me and my crew had booked Phipps to do like one of the virtual parties for New Year's Eve that night. And I finally felt confident enough to do a Twitch stream as like our own little after party for the Phipps. So it was like Phipps was like
cool.
headline in New Year's Eve for our crew. And then I was just like, hey, everybody stick on the Zoom. I'm going to do a Twitch stream. And it did my first, like, it must have been like a 20-30 minute mix that I was performing virtually for folks. That was the first time I, had really like shared my craft with other people at that point.
Had you shared like, because I think it was a reel on Instagram of the Something Headband remix that kind of went, so to speak, viral in the lounge, and like I had known who you were, and like that was the first time like I had interacted with you to reach out. I was like, yo, this is the shit. So does that happen before that New Year's Eve night, or does that happen after that?
No, it happens after. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that
It was around Red Rocks time, wasn't it? I remember that was the first time you jumped on my radar too. Other than the fact that I remember Nate and I and a few of us were together on that 2020 New Year's Eve too,
Yeah,
in a
we're in the
small group.
Bahamas.
We were in the Bahamas, and we were trying to figure out who had the fucking Phipps New Year's Eve stream, and we couldn't figure it out. We never found it. And then the next morning, Hunter was like, the McNatts had it. We could have had it this whole time. So before that, that was really my only like knowing of you. I don't think we had met yet, and I definitely remember that headbands thing being like, oh, okay, this guy makes music. I had no idea.
Yeah, I had been sitting on it for a while, and I didn't make the post with the reel until right before that Chicago run. The Chicago, the 2023 run was when I had dropped it. And like I had been releasing other mashups, like basically like 2021, 2022, I was doing Instagram posts and reels, and I was doing Daily Bread with Little Scrappy, and doing Polish Ambassador with 36 Mafia, kind of like doing the McNice style. But I was still, even though I was doing Twitch streams, I was doing like McNice Mondays, and I'd have like 50, 60, 80 people just joining the Twitch stream, nothing crazy, but like I had enough people that were kind of listening and showing me love. And I was, we can get into this in a second, but was starting to, as COVID was was kind of coming out of some of those COVID restrictions, there was some in-person stuff going on. But it wasn't until lots of convincing from Homie B, from Ashley, from a couple of people that were like, when are you gonna release the Something mashup?
Right. Yeah. It was coveted. It was like,
everybody wanted it. And I don't know if I've ever been more nervous to post anything. So I just didn't want the band to react negatively, but
right.
Alana like immediately hit it with some flames, and
of course,
some of the folks in the band knew what I was doing and knew I was inspired by them. But I was like, as soon as I post it, like that's
you're out there. It's not yours anymore at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
they showed us a lot of love, and then it turned out that just like the universe really rewards, not the right word, but like encouraged me to keep doing it, because they opened up with Something.
Yeah. I mean,
that run. So it was,
that'll tell you for sure. Well, before we get into 2023 and more of that stuff, like we come out of COVID, and 2021 is a huge year for you personally, you and Ashley, right? And I know the the Napa run was really special for you guys. So before we get into kind of the more of that and then the details around it, we wanted to share this clip as well, which is another Podular premiere. Man, this light rig. So
I was
fucking
just about to
awesome.
say that.
Good God. The second half of Pinot Noir gets enough talk. Um, there's some cool stats about this one. So this is night 2 of the Napa run. Obviously, it's the Ode to Pinot Noir in wine country, right?
Sure.
The first night, and everyone coming up to this, there had been a long-awaited full Pinot Noir up to this point. The last full one was in 2017, the Axe Set in New Orleans, the Jazz Fest after party. So 4.5 years before that. The last full electric one was 3 months before that. They hit you with the Pinot Noir outro night 1, and then the encore, they give you a full Pinot Noir. I thought that was a really cool touch to that run. But Dan, talk to us about this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad that you clipped that one, and just the Tiberius just absolutely crushed it on that lighting rig.
I know. I wish we had remembered that one. We had so many to talk about on this episode, and
of course,
that was one that I went back and I was like, oh, the asymmetrical rig. I wish I had picked its brain a little about that one.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, and I think it was like potentially the first run, like after they'd done the Red Rocks. It was like one of the first non-Red Rock shows that they had done in 2021, right? And so it was definitely kind of long awaited. And Ashley and I, we had just purchased a house back in North Carolina. We were still living in California at the time, but sort of used that weekend as sort of like okay, this is sort of like our last hurrah in California. And at the time I decided, I think I probably I'm going to propose to Ashley before we move back, make sure she knows it's the real deal. And then I realized that the first night was October 8th, 10/8/108, which has been like a very significant number to me and in my production company after it. And so just, the calendar aligned, the stars aligned. I was like, that's the night. So right after Emancipator, before Sector 9 came on, I got down on one knee and proposed to Ashley. So definitely a very personally significant moment there. And I hadn't told anybody that I was going to do it. I think there was maybe a handful of people that knew that I was going to propose that night, because I just didn't want anybody to ruin the secret.
I remember hearing it from Hunter Booth about like 5 minutes before it happened, where he's like, the McNatts. He was already calling you the McNatts. He's like, they're gonna propose, and like we all had to like huddle around and see that. So I mean, that is such an epic moment. You kept it under wraps pretty well because.
Yeah, that was really special.
Yeah, we're not as good about keeping secrets in the community.
Right. Yeah, Hunter and Devin and Rohan was staying with us too, and which was actually kind of the last little like piece of encouragement that I needed to throw an after party. And even Rohan didn't know that I was going to propose either. So Rohan and I we go way back. I actually went to college with his brother. And back when I was throwing Manifest back in 2013, Rohan's brother Sandeep put me in touch. Shouts to Sandeep, with Rohan when he was with Higher Learning. I think it was at the time actually. And
man, I missed that band. They were sick.
Yeah. So we stayed. Go ahead.
No. You had. Sorry.
Yeah, we had stayed in touch over the years. We went on a bunch of runs together, and Rohan and I were definitely homies. And he was going to send it out to Napa, and he had just started doing the Rohan solo project. And he was like, "Hey, I see you doing your Twitch thing. You want to do an after party with me?" I was like, "Say less. It's going to be an after party, engagement party, going away party. Like we're about to do it up."
Cool.
So I called around to all the venues I could in Napa. And basically everything shuts down early there. It's like a sleepy town. Like people go out wine tasting. Like there's basically no late night scene. But I found this like wine bar / casino right on the river that had no idea what they were getting themselves into. But I went up there and was like, hey, they didn't even ask to like listen to like a sample of what I was gonna play, like no Instagram, no SoundCloud. They were like, cool. I was like, yeah, we'll probably bring like 50 people through here. Like I'll do it for free. We don't have to charge anything, and it turned out that we had probably close to 200 people show up. They were turning people away at the door. Like everybody that worked there in the regulars, their jaws were on the floor because they had no idea. It was like Rohan's set, is like super weird futuristic bass stuff, and like people are just getting way down to it. People were like, the Napa regulars had no clue what was going on. So, but that was the first time that the McNatt project was done live in a public setting. So definitely just like a really cool weekend, for me personally, and just had a ton of just great memories from that weekend.
You actually walked right through my first question, which was going to be kind of what was the situation where you finally were like, I'm ready to get out from in front of a Twitch camera and do this live. Pretty cool that it was the same time that that you popped the question to Ashley. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
I had a question that I wrote down as we were listening to that last clip. So you do Napa, and then you see you can do it, and then over the next couple of years, you're playing your music a little more often live, and your mixes a little more often. How does seeing the way that people react to your music in a live setting change the way that you create, going back to the drawing board after hearing in a live room and seeing people react to it, and just kind of what layer does that add to your creative process?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there is like what the songs that I anticipate are going to get the biggest reaction from the crowd. Oftentimes it just doesn't land,
Interesting.
And yeah, I'd say that for like Sector 9 after parties, it's usually what I would expect, just because I know what the vibe's going to be like. I know who's there. I know what people listen to. But I definitely think that there is one of the biggest things about DJing and really being like a true like DJ, rather than the production side, is that you really have to like vibe out how people are reacting to your music in the crowd. And especially for some of the like more local DJ gigs I was getting around Winston-Salem in North Carolina, I would go into the gig and would have no clue what the first song would be that I was going to play, or what I was going to play that night. So it really forced me to like organize some of my music in ways that are like easier to find. And, some of it's still based on what Maddie had told me to do originally, but it really got me to like prepare for different gigs in different ways. And I think it was around this time too, that I really started to get into like the storytelling aspect of DJing and of creating a set, and realizing that, like there's certain ways that, maybe some songs you play at the beginning and maybe some songs you save for the end. And the way that I prepare for gigs, especially ones that are more Sector 9 related, are all geared towards how I think the crowd might react to it in certain moments. If I play one mashup at the beginning versus at the end, there could be a completely different reaction, and how if people have been warmed up, or like how many people were in the room. So I think that when I was doing the Twitch streams, it kind of didn't matter. Like I was doing it on Monday nights at like 8 o'clock, and like I just knew everybody was going to be there streaming. But the in-person element definitely adds a whole nother dynamic to like how I prepare to perform.
That's I mean, and that's noticeable when someone's able to do that and when they're not, and for you to recognize that as early as you did when you started to do that, and like you said, getting a lot of this guidance from Maddie had to help out a ton. But let's bring it back to Chicago 2023. I know these are some of your favorite shows, and you talked about them opening with that something as kind of the final universe message you needed to release that. But I know that these shows were some of your favorite too. So we had our last clip from the Best of Luck run at the Rib in 2023. Yeah, Alana.
Yes, sir. I love that weekend for a number of reasons. This was my 100th show. This I didn't even think about this until we are halfway through. We probably should have saved this for a future artist series guest, Eli, because this was actually her 100th request, or one of them. And it may or may not be the weekend that my son was conceived. There's a little bit of debate about that. But I like to say that that this was the weekend that happened too. So I love that this got clipped out, and it definitely won't be the last time we talk about this show. Why was this show so special for you?
This was my first birthday show. My birthday is St. Patrick's Day, so
Yep.
March 17th. Just never caught like a legit birthday show, so that was one reason why it was very special for sure. And I had just released that Some Sing mashup a couple days before, and I had just sort of started kicking it with some of the Chicago crew too, with Gina and the Pearls, and Christian and that whole crew. And it was just like, and it was JJ's birthday the night before, and like they kind of like people took me under their wing, like, it's your birthday too, and like it was just like a really special weekend for me personally. I think I was telling you guys this before the show, that was my show of the year for sure. It was the first night of that Chicago run outside of Paramount, Selector set. I mean, that's like,
I feel like that doesn't count.
That doesn't count. That's in a realm of its own. But just for pure Sector 9, that was absolutely top notch. So
you're welcome for that Potamus and that Gob Nugget.
There was a lot of 100 requests that weekend.
A lot of 100 requests
that were spot on. That was awesome.
I look at those set lists, and it looks like a painting of friendship to me.
Yeah.
So many moments where I'm like, even some, I was next to Brandon and Eli, but like even some of those other ones where, I know somebody over there is just losing their mind because they just got theirs. I mean, there was such a feeling in that room that whole weekend where people were just getting them knocked down left and right.
I have a thought where, so Selector 9 gets announced just a handful of weeks after this.
I've had this thought.
These set lists came together so beautifully, and a lot of these songs were fan requests. So it was almost like the band like seeing and entrusting how well the shows turned out, where we had a big hand in requesting a lot of what they played. Obviously, they're the maestros when it comes to putting it all on paper and making sure it makes sense, tempo wise, key wise, flow wise, which they knocked out of the park in that sense.
Right.
But that's a thought I've had where that might have been like, yeah, our fans might be onto something. They picked some good songs.
I had that same thought too, and like to the point where like, I mean, those actually technically the songs that I got played, that was they got played on our 99, and I had a feeling that they might move some around just because of how many were there. And I was totally fine with it. I mean, you're right. Just the way that we gave them kind of a platter of songs to pick from, and they consciously put it where it didn't feel forced and it still felt completely organic. And I've had that thought of was that the kind of birth of the Selector 9? I don't know. Maybe we'll ask them one day.
Well, thank you Daniel, for bringing us to that It's Amana. That's another Podular review. You just some of my favorite songs that we played tonight, and it's such a pleasure to go through that. Man, how good is the back half of a full It's Amana? It's just it's I was almost crying there of how beautiful that was. That was nuts. Scott, I think we got some rapid fire questions and some this or
Yeah.
that to go through
Yeah.
before we get some Tar Heel talk. So why don't you start that up?
Got some this or that and some quick hits before we do one of our favorite segments that we're bringing back. Favorite venue to see STS9 in, D?
I gotta go Fox Theater in Oakland.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Favorite STS9 song?
Monkey Music.
Oh, my boy. Favorite member of the band?
I don't know if I can pick one. That's so tough.
Come on, we've all got one. A lot of these clips lean towards Hunter. I'll tell you that.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna say Kaya because she makes everything sound good.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
It's a neutral pick.
Yeah.
See,
but it's a good shout out. It's a good shout out.
I'm torn between loving and hating that answer. Part of me is like Kaya deserves every shout out that she can get. We hope to have her as a guest one day, and the other part of me is like, fuck you, dude. Just pick a answer. Favorite type of STS9? Funk, DMB, wave spell, etc. Like favorite mode.
I always like when there's a certain element of grime to the music, so I typically like gravitate towards the low end, and that's why I love the rabbles. I love anything that's got like the drum breakdown in it. So
yeah, stuff that's rooted in hip hop, which connects to your roots. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Fuck yeah. Some this or that questions. This is one of our new favorites. New segment presented by Sets by Scotty. It's called Fast or Slow Call Jam.
Let's go fast.
Fast. Okay, I like it. Get the rubber burning. All right. Gob Nugget or Frequencies?
Ooh, Gob Nugget. That was the walkout song that Ashley and I, that's the first song they played when we got married.
Woo, hell yeah.
What a walkout song. Y'all are so cool.
Pianoir or something?
I love them both for so many reasons, but I'm going to go something.
I had a feeling it your first mix it opened up the Super Bowl mix. That makes sense.
Arigato or Instantly?
Instantly is what brought me into the band, but Arigato I think is like the perfect old school new school combo song. So I'm gonna go Gato.
Hell yeah, both are that. We're gonna wrap up with a really fun exercise. So for those of you who don't know, Daniel, who is obviously a UNC grad, huge Tar Heel fan, which I love that about him. A lot of people might not know I bled Carolina blue as well until I got my letter that I wasn't allowed in there, because getting into UNC out of state, you might as well be applying to Harvard. So we've done this with a few folks where we're going to personify members of STS9 into UNC basketball players. So let's start with your list. What's your starting five here?
Yep. So as I was going through this, and thanks for humoring me and doing this, I love this segment.
Oh, hell yeah.
I realized that a lot of the folks that I was making the comparisons to were all on the same squad. So I just mapped them all to the 97 UNC squad. And I'll explain why. So start off with Phipps. I'm going Vince Carter, because they are the magicians, right? You know, they are the ones like wizardry on the keys, wizardry in the sky. They are the flair. They get the highlight reels. Like they are just straight up like poetry in motion between Vince and Phipps. For Zach, I'm going point guard. I'm going Ed Cota.
Bro. 2 for 2, the same for me right now.
Wait, seriously? No way.
Yeah.
You have Phipps as Vince Carter?
Yeah, the
Like-
Flash, baby. Come on, dude.
Oh my God,
Ed
this
Coda,
is crazy.
Ed Coda, the tempo god. Let's go.
The tempo guy,
Oh my God, this is
the
amazing.
floor general.
Yes. All right. The rest are not from that team. So, but that's funny. You start 2 for 2 on my list.
That's
So
amazing.
finish yours.
That's why we're homies, man.
Yep.
So for free, I'm going Ademola Okulaja,
Okay.
who is the ultimate glue guy. You know,
Yep.
like doing everything that to support the other teammates. Huge locker room guy, and I've always thought that Free is just wise beyond his years. It feels like Ademola Okulaja was one of those guys, just a very like high IQ, heady guy. Alana, I'm going Antoine Jameson. Just like
okay,
power,
just skilled power.
Solid.
Like was National Player of the Year, but somehow still underrated. Like just so like super nice and soft spoken, but like when they're out there doing their thing, they're just absolute monsters. So
almost too good at their job to where you count on them to the point where you forget about them in a way.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. And then last but not least, bringing us home, HB. I'm actually going Dean Smith.
Okay.
With this
Fuck
one.
yeah. I love that answer. I was thinking of putting Dean Smith in there. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
the kind of, I've always thought that HB was sort of like the creative director, sort of like
visionary,
like the visionary, like off the court, like figuring things out and
X's and O's. Yeah.
I love this. I love this.
The four corners.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's pretty cool too, because I don't know if we said it on here before, but if anyone's ever lucky enough to have a conversation with anyone in the band, I would argue that Hunter is the most willing to give you his time, and if you ask him a question, he's gonna dive as deep as you have time for. And he's just really, a heady guy. So I mean, making him a coach is just that's some 3D thinking. I love that.
Yeah, fuck it. Name the stadium after him too. Cool. That's your list. That's a dope list. That's so funny. So yeah, I mean, I'll start by recapping. I had Zach as Ed Coda, my all-time favorite North Carolina point guard. Just a little guy doing the dirty work when he needs to as well. Phipps is Vince Carter, the Flash, the highlight reel, the puts the asses in the seat, so to speak. Alana, I had Julius Peppers. People forget that Julius Peppers played basketball at North Carolina too.
Sure did.
I just learned that. I thought you went to the squad because of heavy hitting.
He looked so crazy in a basketball uniform. Like
that's got to be the scariest man ever to put on a basketball uniform.
So it has success in other ventures as well, right? Multi-talented, and just an absolute beast of a presence that you can't forget.
I love that. Dude, fun fact about Julius Peppers. Sorry to cut you off, but I have to get this in here. The only person to ever play in a Super Bowl and a Final Four.
Woo! That's fucking fire as fuck. Yeah, the only person to play with Jim James and with STS9. So there we go. Same kind of school of thought there. I have Jeffrey Lerner as Danny Green, the sixth man, baby.
Sick.
Just another glue guy. A little past his years, a little bit. One of the older guys. The guy's dancing to jump around in the back during tip off. So Danny Green. Hunter, I've got MJ. He's my Michael Jordan man. So that's that. And I had one for Murph too. Brendan Haywood. Just an absolute load on the low end. A little bit sloppy with the ball. A big vibes guy, very vocal, lots of technical fouls, I think. And a part of the not greatest era of STS9 UNC basketball, the Matt Doherty era, right? I think of maybe as
don't remind me.
The 2012, 2013 years. Yeah. So that rounds out my STS9 UNC starting lineup.
An absolute load. Oh my God, I'm fucking crying. Oh.
All right. Well, Scotty, before we get to giving hot take, let's just get a few more last questions. Roll out the red carpet, so to speak, for Daniel. Where can people find your mixes, events, and next moves?
Yeah. Instagram is definitely the spot where all the latest information is. DJ underscore McNice. I'm Daniel McNice on Facebook. So anybody, feel free to send me a friend request. I'll accept it. Anybody from Sector 9 fam. And then SoundCloud is where I'll post my mixes. I'll see if I can get this one up there around the time that, the pod is out. And I think it's just McNice on SoundCloud. So yeah, SoundCloud.
Yeah, we'll make sure we link all that in the description and everything too.
Yep. Yep.
Good shit. And anything else you want to shout out? Upcoming projects, events, people, anything like that?
Yeah. I've got a couple cool things in the works for some of these announced dates that are coming up. So definitely, stay on the lookout for some Sector 9 related after party, McNice style going on. Maybe potentially a pre-party. We'll see. And then I'm gonna have I've been doing the Bangers and Mash mixtapes. Released a couple last year. I've got like 2 more already in the works, so those will be coming the next couple months. And I just want to shout out all the Sector 9 homies that have really supported me over the years. Some of the OGs, Bobby, Dilly, Jackie, B, and Chris, and some of the newer folks, North Carolina folks that like come through Winston-Salem from my local gigs. Don and Derek and Alex and Jacqueline and Bobby and Hannah, and just a lot of love from these folks that come through and just see me play in front of 10 people at some events in Winston-Salem, which has been really cool. And then, just like huge shout out to the ultimate hype wife, Ashley. I have to mention that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. We talked about this in Atlanta, and you said that she played a part in that Super Bowl mix. So what was her part?
That Tokyo Lizzo mashup is her creation. She was messing around on the decks back in like 2020, 2021 and threw that on there, and my jaw hit the floor. I was like, that sounds great. I never touched it, I never played it. That's hers, and I was like, I'm doing a Super Bowl mix. I think that's perfect. Can Lizzo be a headliner in the Super Bowl?
And then that next morning you bought the ring after she put that match together.
Exactly. Right? She is the one. The one. So shout out to Ashley for supporting. Yeah.
Future guests, I'm sure, as well. Well, Scotty, it's time for a given hot take. It's your week for this, so you have the floor.
Yeah, and it's funny that this is when I finally landed with this one, because I've had this one in my back pocket for a while. I did not pull it out because of Daniel being here. Just sometimes we avoid the given hot takes with guests because it can get awkward. We don't want them thinking they're co-signing anything we're saying. Anyway, I had this thought after the Marine episode, and I think it's time for an STS9 cover set. We have seen, and we've got Mr. Mashup here, so perfect timing on that thought. But we've been seeing, let's just call them what they are, better covers out of this band lately. More thought out, less kind of let's play a few measures of whatever song we're gonna tease and leave it. We're seeing 8, 10, 12-minute long thoughts of these cover songs. Whether it's Thriller or some of the stuff they did with Lettuce or what have you.
Brace yourself, Jason.
Yeah, all that. There is enough that they have been pulling from lately that is not their materials to do a whole, at least a set, if not a whole show of covers that still feels STS9. Because we forget stuff like Roy G. Biv. That's a cover. So that's what I'm talking about here. That's fair game just as much as A Groove Is in the Heart or anything else that we've heard or that we haven't heard. And maybe don't bill it as a cover show or a cover set. Maybe just pull that thing out on Halloween or something and
let us figure it out halfway through the first set.
Exactly. Because they feel it feels, I don't know, they just feel comfortable enough with anything right now to where, I think when this topic has come up in the past, it's been, I want to hear STS9 songs. I don't want to go to STS9 show for a bunch of covers. And I think we're past that. I think when they do pull covers out, they are STS9 songs that they've, kind of built out, and I think they could do it. I think it'd be really cool.
I'm on board. Fuck with it. Daniel?
I'm with it.
All right. Fuck yeah. Well, that brings us to the close here, folks. We've got a fan prompt for you guys before next week's episode. Next week, we're going to be previewing the upcoming shows at the Sky Deck in Nashville. So we simply want to know, what are you looking to hear? Sound off in the comments on the songs that you want to hear. We're going to be covering, diving into the STS9 Nashville time capsule next week. And then the week after that, we'll have some fresh shows to review, mine and Scotty's favorite episodes. But thanks for listening, guys. Daniel, thank you for joining, man. This was
Thank
so
you
much
so
fun.
much, man.
Thanks for all you do to bring this extra flair into the STS9 community and keeping the hip hop the portion alive of it. It's a huge influence there, and a lot of people need to recognize that this band is rooted in hip hop. Just thanks for hosting all the after parties. It's always a blast, and can't wait for the next one. But again, like us, subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube, listen on Spotify or Apple Music. Have a great weekend, all. Chest pats. See you next week.
Thanks for having me, guys. Much love.